Now we have another talk where the title starts with the word why. Because here the guys were talking about why do they have a personal ASN, and the next talk is going to be why do we need 400 gig? Well, no, not really. It's about the event why, obviously, and the 400 gig uplink that the gentlemen on my right have provided to this event. Well, guys, 400 gig is not nothing. The question is, how did you do it, and was it enough? I'm curious.
Hello. Today we'll tell you something about the 400 gigabit fiber to the home connection that we've built for Y. Does this work? Okay. Yeah. Fiber to that. Anyway, this is Nico, and I'm Arjan, and we've both been involved with the NLNOG team for Y 2025. Why did we build this network? Well, it's fun, and hackers obviously need internet. So Y 2025 is this year's Dutch hacker camp. It's a multi-day outdoor non-profit camp/festival. And with the team of volunteers, we've built a decent-ish scale temporary ISP with its own AS number, IP space. We have an on-site fiber infrastructure, and we had about 60 data enclosed. If you're interested about this kind of infrastructure, there was also a talk last year at the NLNOG Day, so you can watch that back, and it goes into more details about what kind of infrastructure is being deployed there. So the Dutch hacker camps, they have been going on for quite a while now. The first one was in 1993, and going forward, each 4 years there was a hacker camp organized. And throughout the years, the bandwidth of the uplink also has grown considerably. And in the last couple of editions, we actually managed to each time double the speed of the uplink. But of course, it also still needs to remain practical to do so. So for example, in 2013, we were in Geesmer Ambacht, which is a site north of Alkmaar. There we actually had to install 3 kilometers of fiber ourselves, which is not really something that we would like to repeat in future events. So when we, in 2017, when we moved to Zeewolde, we were lucky enough that Eurofiber was already on net at this site, so it was quite doable to get a dark fiber connection to NICHAF. And so for the 2025 event, we were back at Geesmer Ambacht site, but since years has passed, there was actually fiber to the home connection installed at the field itself, so that was quite convenient. And for the event, we were able to use the uplink as a dark fiber connection, but the only challenge is that this fiber to the home connection is only a simplex fiber. For MCH 2022, which was still in Zeewolde, we worked together with SURF, which is a quite nice cooperation. And so we wanted to work with them again for Y 2025. They offered us in Alien Wave, so it's a DWDM channel on their infrastructure. And with that, we were able to build a 400 gigabit link from NICHAF, which is where the equipment from Event Infra is installed, to in Holland, in Alkmaar, which is one of the customer sites from from SURF. And in the last slide, we talked about the fiber to the home provider we had on the site, but we still needed to bridge a gap between SURF and the fiber to the home provider. And for that, a 35-kilometer dark fiber was rented. So we ended up with 2 400 gig links, and they were connected back to back in Holland, Alkmaar. Right, so 400 gig simplex, 400 gig over simplex, how hard can it be? Well, we included early on enough that we needed to be using some kind of DWDM technology because of the distance and the loss of the fiber. So we had about 50 kilometers of dark fiber. And yeah, we were inspired by EMF 2024, which is the UK-based hacker camp. And what they did there is that they deployed a 4x 10 gig BiDi solution using DWDM. And what they used there is a 8-channel MUX. And yeah, they put the RX on one channel of the 10G link and the TX on another channel. So we wanted to do something similar, but then with 400 gig. And what we did is that we, at least at i2d.net, we had some ADVA equipment laying around with 400G. So we tried some tests with that, but that did not work. We tried to put like the RX on one channel and the TX on the other channel. It didn't work. We mailed with ADVA. And they said like, oh yeah, no, that doesn't work. You need to buy this other product, and then it might work. So what we learned is that with the current coherent technology, the RX and the TX frequency always needs to be the same. So we ended up asking around on NLNOG IRC if people had any suggestions. One of the suggestions was to use an optical circulator. And with optical circulator, the RX and TX frequency can actually be the same. But the downside of the optical circulator is that if you have a lot of reflection and loss on the fiber, then you can have some cross-channel interference. So we thought it would not work out. So we did actually get a couple of circulators from Arjan. Thank you very much for that. But we did not end up using it for this 400G link. But, and so when we were chatting on IRC, then also Nico, he came up with a somewhat cursed idea, which he will explain about a little now.
So we knew what does not work because the coherent optics are really good at filtering the receiving light. The circulator was the problem with the KPN dark fiber. Some of you have already experienced KPN dark fibers. So we weren't really sure if the reflection would meet the requirement of having a circulator connected to the normal DWDM optic, or if just all the light would come back and destroy the link. But what if we use more optics? What if we use a different optic for TX than for RX? The problem with Ethernet switches is that they care about link state. So when you plug in an optic, it won't push traffic out of a port if it doesn't see a link on that port. But that's mainly an issue with Ethernet or other more intelligent equipment. It's not so big of a problem with DWDM active equipment, which just does basically an optical-electrical optical interface. Some of them happily accept data on one port and will push it out of the other port and vice versa without receiving any lights. Thankfully, we had some smart optics equipment at the place where I work because we are currently upgrading our network as well to 400 gig, and especially for customer lines, we don't want to have the coherent colored optic in the customer equipment. We want to have it in our vicinity and then just hand over normal LR4. And with these smart optic stuff, I tried it at work, and it looked quite promising. And then KPN delivered the line to the field, and we found out that the 50-kilometer fiber line from the in-Holland POP to the local site has over 20 dB of loss, which is roughly 1.5 or even more than what we expected. Coherent optics, the ones we use, have around 20 dB of power budget, so that was a bit of an issue again. So to make the setup even a bit more complex, we decided that we needed amplifiers for that. So this is the lab setup we did before the event. I will also have a schematic drawing in a minute for that. But you can see on the top left are the two smart optics multiplexers. You see the green optics are the client optics connecting to the active Ethernet switches, and the white optics are the colored 120 kilometer DWDM 400 gig optics, where only one of the ports is connected. On the upper left optic, you see cable in the, I think on the RX side, and the upper right optics is sending the data. In front of that, you see a 40 kilometer fiber spool on the bottom to simulate the link. And because that was not bad enough, I had to add like 10 dB of attenuation to that to make sure that we are as close to the local fiber as possible. I couldn't add much reflection though. And on the right side of the slot, so that's a one rack unit chassis, you see the amplifier, which we used to boost the signal before feeding that to the optics. It worked with a circulator. That's the small cable-y mess on top of the fiber spool. But in the end, we found out that the 4-channel DWDM mux has less attenuation than the circulator. And as attenuation was already a big problem, we tried our best to have the least attenuation, at least in our equipment. So we went with the DWDM mux instead of the circulator. But that would have also worked in that setup with a different TX and RX frequency. This is the schematic. On the left is our trusty home router connected to the 400 gig link. And then that cable gets split on both ends and fed into the DWM active multiplexer we have. So the client 1 port is sending out data and being connected to the RX of our router, and the client 2 port is only receiving data. And from that on, it's just changing waves, going from the normal LR4 optic to a ZR Plus optic, and connecting to the DWDM mux. We use the amplifiers on the receiving side, as it's quite common in carrier networks. And in between the side, we had the single fiber strand connecting that. The right part of the image is clipped because that's just a boring normal 400 gig DWDM link over an amplified network, which some of you might have already built, or some will have yet, will build it in the future. But these are the most important part. At the in-Holland POP, we had to convert from a normal 400 gig link to the 2 BiDi setup. Thankfully, the Smart Optics has 3 times 400 gig, so we made perfect use of that. And also to make the cabling a bit more complicated and fun, we decided to not use 1 times 400 gig in our equipment, but split it up into 4 times 100 gig, which is a bit fun on the cabling. You see on the top right picture, this is the MPO breakout box we used in Holland. The first third of the thing is the 4 times 100 gig from NICAF, and the 2 other parts are the 400 gigs or 4 times 100 going to the field and coming back to the field, where only every second LC simplex port is used. During the build, we had one of the fibers in one location swapped. Quite to our surprise, the link even came up, but we had different LLTP neighbors on both ends because we basically built a triangle of devices. We used LACP and BGP, so no data has been harmed in that, but it still was fun. Also, we found out that when you unplug a circulator, you will have a total reflection on the open end, and you will loop your management network or whatever you've put on the circulator before to try that. So this is the top right picture is our POP in Holland. The upper line is the MPO breakout box we used. Then we have got the DWDM multiplexer to multiplex onto simplex fiber going to the field. The next device is not ours, it was just there. It happened to be in the picture. And on the bottom, you see the Smart Optics device again with the 3 times 400 gig on the left and the EDFA amplifier on the right. This basically gave us 6 dB of headroom. So in case anything broke again on the way to the field or on the field because someone tripped over the fiber, we would still have had some margin to correct that. We built a nice dashboard to get all the 400 gig coherent data into Grafana and see what was going on in the fiber and monitor that a bit, especially because with the coherent stuff you can monitor some or nice physical impact on the fiber, where the light can rotate and attenuation will change over time. You see that on the Q factor, which isn't steady at all. You see we had a power outage on one time where where the line dropped and then came back again. But you also see that there is no data for some of the optics, like the zeros you see on the right, which is the prefec, because 2 of the optics aren't receiving any light. Also, the same is for the dispersion on the top and some other values, because when you aren't receiving anything, you will get no data of that. So if you build something similar at your workplace, probably don't, or somewhere else, be prepared that questions will come up why there is no data for some links or the stuff looks weird, because this is not intended to work, but it works. Even our German sales representative of Smart Optics was quite surprised that their hardware could do that, but thanks for that, it works. I would do it again. Probably not at work, but definitely for other fun projects. Do you have questions?
Yeah, I was expecting people to stand up and ask how to do this in their homes.
Well, the nice thing about that is you saw that we used the 4-channel DWDM Max. So scaling up that to 2 times 400 gig or 2 times 800 gig is just a matter of money and optics, but nothing else. So just throw more money on that and you will get more bandwidth on that.
Like any problem, thank you. I see that there is an internet god and supreme network ruler at the microphone.
Thank you, Niels. You've given me great inspiration for my own network, so thank you for that. Yes, that too. Now my question is, how much of this bandwidth was actually used? What was the biggest traffic peak you guys saw at Y? Because
yeah, we've got an infra review. It's up on YouTube Media CCC. I don't have the number with me this time. We just focus on that. Not a lot.
Just under 100.
Yeah, 100-ish. Okay. But we wanted to keep up the pace with doubling the bandwidth. Yeah. And especially solve that problem when you don't have to, but you want to.
So 800 gigs at the next event then?
Maybe.
Game's on, yeah.
Thank you.
Will.
Will, operator of BiDi network in Lausanne. I'm really interested in that one. I was curious about the price, actually, of these optics. I think like a 400 gig optic is like around 2K, 1K, something like that. And what about the MUX?
Well,
rough ID.
The coherent ZR Plus optics, the 120 kilometers, are way more expensive than that. So we had to use the really expensive ones because that's tunable and we need a power budget. So these were the high power ones, which unfortunately you can't get for 2 or 3K at the moment. They are more like a lot higher. That really depends on your vendor where you can get optics. I saw prices for 15K. I saw prices with sub 10K. So yeah, the total price of that. The smart optic stuff isn't that expensive. Okay. So the optics were the more. Most of the magic was happening in the optical part. The smart optics is mostly OIO and a bit monitoring and, well, the breakout configuration, that stuff. But the optics were way more expensive they were more expensive on our insurance list, the hardware. We didn't need to buy it. It was sponsored by various companies, thankfully, and now returned.
Yeah, thank you for the information. Thank you very much.
And I think the MUX and the amplifier would have been just standard parts, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the MUX we got from where I work and the amplifier we borrowed from Smart Optics.
All right, well, thank you again. We have a small present for you, as always.